Hello people and welcome to this video. So before making this video, I actually made React tutorial to build frontend and Express.js tutorial to build server. If you haven't watched any of those tutorials yet, then please check out the link in the description and I will also add the video somewhere here or here. So go and watch those tutorials first, because in this video we won't be learning any new technology as such, but we will be connecting the server we built with the front end we built. Okay, so if you haven't watched those videos, then please stop this video right here and go watch them first. Once you are complete with building the front end and building the server, then come on to this video to learn how to connect them. And just like those tutorials, in this tutorial also the main focus will be on what practices you can use, because syntax is more or less simple, I would say, because you just need to make API calls to the backend, so not much in that. And this video will be a little shorter, compared to the other tutorials, but yeah, let's see. Okay, so let's get straight to the screen. Okay, so this is our Express tutorial codebase, and if you have watched that tutorial, you know that near the end somewhere I left some things as homework for you, and the basic requirement was building the to-do routes. So let's see. To-do routes, I have more or less completed them. So actually, to build a to-do route, you also had to build a to-do model. So let's first go to to-do model. So I just create a schema. The title will be of type string and it will be required. Done will be of type boolean and default will be false. I also told you to explore how to put a foreign key here, that is link one model to another model. Hopefully you have done it. Again, please let me know in the comments if you actually did search it and was able to figure out or was not able to figure out because of any reason. Just that I know that you are actually putting efforts on your own also. So in the to-do, we also have a user which is of this type, object ID. Hopefully you know this, because as I said, I gave this as homework, and the model is user. Yeah, so we create a to-do model and we simply export it. That's all for the to-do model. Now let's go to routes. So the slash route basically takes the user from the authentication middleware we created. That middleware attached the ID to request object only. So request.user.id. From this we take the user and we find all the to-dos of this user. Again, this is same as doing this. So user should be this user, and this both the statements are same. And for all those to-dos we find, we only select the title. Again, this is also something I told you to explore on your own. Hopefully you did that. So there is honestly not much in the to-do model. So we just have title, done and user. But still, just to teach you stuff, I have written only title here. Maybe in your use case there are 10 different attributes, so you just have to select one. Anyway, so we send the list of to-dos. Okay, coming over to next route, which is the details of to-do. There are not many details, but that's why I have written title here. In this case, we will return everything. So title, whether it is done or not, and user is obviously your current user only. So again, we take the user from the request object. We take the to-do from the request params, which is this. And notice we have added auth middleware here also. So we try to find the to-do by the given ID. If we do not find the to-do, we return response with status code 400, which is bad request, saying that it is an invalid to-do ID. Then we check if the user of that to-do, which means the user that created that to-do, is same as the current user. If this is not the case, then we return the response with status code 401, which is unauthorized, saying that you are not the creator of this to-do. One thing to note here is this. So instead of checking like this, you would have probably also tried this. So if you tried this, it would be better if you console.log and try stuff. So to-do.user and user. I'm not gonna show the output. It's something you should do on your own. So if you console.log this, you will see that to-do.user is actually an object ID, whereas this user, this is what you get from the request user ID, is a string. So you are comparing an object ID with a string. Now in JavaScript, there are two types of comparison. So let me just show you. First is strict equality, triple equal to, and second is normal equality, double equal to. And similar to this, if we are checking not equal, we have strict not equal or normal not equal. Now doing this or this also checks the type. So even if both of them are same in the value, since their types are different, doing this strictly not equal to will give us false because their types are different. If you only do this, it will return true because it won't check the type, it will just check the value. Now you might think that it's better to use this in this use case, but from what I have learned from my experience is it's always discouraged to use this lose operator, that is only double equal to or this one. You should always use this one or this one because it helps you to avoid a lot of bugs as you may face in the future, because you do not know what the types is, and sometimes whatever typecast JS use, that might not what you expect. So it's always better to check strict equality, which is type. And since we want to check strict equality, we explicitly do this, that is change the object ID type to string. You explicitly change the type to string, and now you do normal this. This is much better than doing this. Okay, you get the idea. Because if you are into a habit of using these operators, you will definitely face a lot of bugs because you won't know where random type change and things which were supposed to be true came out to be false or vice versa, or things like that. So better avoid all that and explicitly do typecasting wherever required. Cool. Let's remove this. Let's remove this. Okay, cool. And if this is not the case, then obviously we normally return this. And if you see, I have used res.json everywhere. So in the last tutorial also I said JSON and send are more or less same. There are a few minor differences, you can read about that on Google. Not much. This is also done. This is done. And the last is creating a to-do. So post request on / again, this is also authenticated. So we take only title from the body. If you want, you can take done also, but I have assumed that it will be by default false. We take the user from the request object, which is attached by the middleware auth. We create a new to-do and we just save it. And as a response, we return the same to-do. If you want, you can return something else, like just say success true or something, whatever you want. It's completely up to you. So basically every other code is from the tutorial only. It's just the to-do routers and to-do model which are new. Let's go to the front-end code once. Okay, front-end code I actually haven't not changed and it's still very much basic. So let me actually open the website. Localhost 3000. Okay, why this 2 coming? Weird. Let's just search it. Oh wow, I already have searched. Cool. So use effect, just remove this, save it, reload the page. I think I should have pressed okay. What happened? Yeah, by the way, I have both the servers running on the terminal. So I have Express server running here and the React server running here. Cool. Yeah, so the front end is actually pretty basic. Let's try logout once. Yeah, login, logout, login, new to do, logout. Okay, so let's try connecting the login thing first. I won't connect registration. You can do that because for registration I will have to create the front end also. So again, this you can treat as homework. I will only integrate login. So in authentication, we have a button login. Let's do one thing. Let's create 2 buttons, login 1 and login 2, and depending on what we press, it will log into the corresponding user. I won't add the input fields for username and password. Hopefully you have done this, because again, this is something I said to do in the React tutorial. Read about controlled and uncontrolled components. Read about controlled and uncontrolled input. So I assume you have done that. So return a fragment and then button on click equal to login. I will give it as a parameter 1, login 1, login 2, and remove this. And this login will take kind as a parameter. So it actually right now does local storage of set item and sets the token. Now, if you remember from the Express tutorial, we are still using some kind of token authentication. So we still need to store the token somewhere. And local storage is actually a valid way of doing this, because local storage is persistent on your website close, your browser close, your computer reshut and whatever. So if you store the token, you can remember that the user was already logged in the next time you open the website. So we will still do this, but let's just change it to, first of all, asynchronous function, and then try catch. Try catch is basically everywhere. Whenever you are playing with promises, try catch is like almost a must. So you will always do everything inside of try catch. So error console.error error. Cool. So now we need to make a request to our server. So by default, JavaScript provides a function called as fetch, which can take your URL, your request body and so on, and depending on that, give the response. Okay, let's first try it. I will later use something else actually. So const res equal to await fetch. Now if it's a GET request, you can directly give the URL here like this. But if you remember, login in our case was a post request. So to do a post request, we actually have to send an object. Method will be post, or maybe it was in uppercase. Let's do uppercase, and then URL. Now let's see what the URL was. So let's open the Postman. I already have it open. Localhost 8000/API/auth. Let's copy this, go to our React code and paste it. Now we added the URL. Now we need to give a body also. So body. So the thing is, if you remember, the client, which is the front end, communicates with the server, which is the backend, in the form of JSON object. But this fetch thing, the fetch function by default, does not allow us to send a JSON object. So what can we do? So JavaScript has a utility called as JSON.stringify, and it takes an object. So let me actually show you. Okay, here only. Let's open the console. Let me create an object, a random object. So a equal to name Sanchit, nickname tichnas. So I created this. Now I do JSON.stringify a. So it gives the string version of your JSON object or your JavaScript object. It gives a string version of that. So if you notice, the double quotes are escaped with the backslash. So backslash double quotes name, backslash double quotes. And if you remember, in JSON, even the key must have double quotes. So it's basically saying that. And if you want, so let's put this in a variable. So b equal to JSON.stringify sta. Now b is this. Now if you want to get back the actual object instead of this string, you can do JSON.parse b. You will get back the exact same object. Okay. So we will use this thing to pass the body. So JSON.stringify, and I will pass the username and password. And for that, let's create an array. Const credentials equal to an array, because this kind will be 0 or 1. Or wait, it was 1 or 2. Okay, let's do 0 or 1. So depending on what is the value of kind, depending on what is the value of kind, we will take those credentials. So the credential is username and password. Okay. So first is username. Let's say u1. We will create these users actually using Postman, because registration will not be integrated. And password. So password is p1. Second is username u2. Password p2. And in the body we do JSON.stringify credentials kind. So if kind is 0, we will use these credentials. If kind is 1, we will use these credentials to log in. Okay. Now actually do this much only, and you will see what's the issue before proceeding ahead. So we have changed the login. Yeah, let's open it. Let's also keep a track on the network tab and console tab. I will delete this. I will also delete this. Now to login 1. Go to console. Okay, nothing is there. Go to here. Open this. Okay, it did a GET request to this URL. Wait, let me check. Okay, my bad. This fetch should be little bit different. So it's actually const as equal to await fetch. The first will be URL only. So this much URL, and in second parameter we give it an object method post body JSON.string e5 credentials kind. Let's remove this. Yeah, hopefully this should work. Okay, let's delete this. Delete. Okay. Console anyways have nothing. Login. Yeah. So now if you see, we made a post request to the expected URL, but it's saying cross origin request blocked. The same origin policy allows reading the remote resource at this reason course header status code error type error network error. So basically, in short, the error is course, and this is basically saying cross origin request something. I don't remember what is S, but what it's saying is for your security reason, it does not allow your origin, which is localhost 3000, to make a request to another origin, which is your server, which is localhost 8000. Now, course is actually pretty interesting thing because course is not a server-side security. So if it was something from the server side, then even from the postman you should not be able to like make the request, right? But from the postman you are able to make the request. So it's something which is from the front end side. So it's your browser which is blocking this. But if you want to fix it, you can fix it using the server side. So basically what happens is your browser actually makes a call to the server. It asks the server whether it allows this origin or not. Your server says that no, I does not recognize this origin. What is this localhost 3000? I don't know. So it's something you should not allow. So browser blocks it. Whereas Postman, being a developer tool, does not block it. So server has a say onto what to allow or not. But at the end of the day, it's up to your browser or Postman whether to respect that server decision or not. So it's not that much of a security, but still something you should know and something you should be aware of, that course is only a choice of your browser, not something forced by the server. So like I said, you can fix this thing by your server. So if you go to your Express, you can go to your. Actually, I will not fix it from the server side. I will actually do it from the front end. But just to make you explore things, there's a package called as CORS. So just read about it and try to fix this issue first using server side. So it won't be a lot of work, actually, like 10-15 minutes I guess. Just install this package, read its documentation, how to whitelist certain cross origin domains. So in this case you want to whitelist localhost 3000, or you just allow all the websites, so localhost 3000, any other random website, to make request. So try this once, but for now what I'm gonna do is not do it from the server side, but from the front end side, not from the server side. Okay, so like I said, this is something your browser is blocking, not as such a restriction from a server. So what we will do is open our React app, open package.json, and here anywhere, just add a new field named proxy, proxy, and in proxy add your backend URL. So http://localhost 8000. So what we are doing this is basically saying to the React app that whatever request we make, send that request to this server, which is proxy localhost 8000. Now this has two advantages. First, the browser does not know this. So if you see, I will show you later, the browser still thinks that it actually is making the request to localhost 3000 only. But then your React says that okay, this request should be sent to the server which is on the port 8000. So course is gone. So you won't face a course error. This is one advantage. The second advantage is, right now you are in development mode, you are developing, so your backend is on this localhost 8000. But when you deploy onto the production, your URL will change. Your URL won't stay localhost. So if you hardcode this in whenever you are doing any API call, then it would be really pain to deploy it on production or even change the port if you want. By putting this here, it's just you change this one and everything will change automatically. You don't have to do anything. And even, I mean, if you want, I can make a video on how to deploy it on production or dockerize this or things like that. Just let me know in the comments. But for now, you understand how this is useful, right? Cool. So we have added the proxy. Now when we are making the request, let's remove this much from it. And yeah, so /API/auth, and in the proxy we have written that this request should go to localhost 8000. Just a disclaimer, when you add a proxy, you need to restart your React server. So we close this and restart. Okay, so the server has restarted. Let's open the website, reload it. Now delete this, login one. Okay, so now you see we actually got a status code of 500, at least not the course error. So since this is a server error, it should probably be logged on the terminal. By the way, if you see, it's saying that it sent the request to localhost 3000. So we kind of made the browser think that it's not a cross origin request. You are still sending the request to localhost 3000 only. And then in our React code, we told it to like take the request and send it to localhost 8000. And since the server does not block anything, we are cool with it. Cool. Let's actually check the server code. No warning here. Open our Express tutorial. Auth. So when are we returning status 500? Okay, we do not actually console.log here. So console.log error. Let's make the request again. Open the terminal. Illegal arguments undefined. Okay, let's debug this together. I think it should not even find the user. Okay, let's do console.log username, password, and user. Send the request again. Open the terminal. So this is undefined, but it still gave a user, and the reason is, okay, we had old users in our database which do not have a username field. So since it does not have a username field, the username field is undefined, and therefore it like gave us this user. So ideally in your case, like I told in the tutorial also, you will first obviously check whether username and password are even valid strings or not. So this error will be handled, and obviously you won't have wrong users lying in your database. Cool. But the main issue is we didn't get the request body. Okay, so let's see the network request actually from the browser. This is this request. It sent JSON, password, and username. You can also check using raw. So username U1, password P1. So it did send a body. So let's do one thing. Instead of printing username and password directly and user, also let's print request.body. Cool. Let's send the request again. Open the terminal. Okay, so the body itself is an empty object, and most probably the reason for it is from the front end side. We did state that tell it that it's a post request. This is the body, but there is also headers of your request. So remember, we added token in your headers. Now there are other headers also. So in the Postman, if you see headers, there are a lot of headers. You don't generally set this manually, but there are some headers that you need to set. So we will do headers and object, because there are multiple headers, and the header we want to set right now is content type, content-type, and the value will be application/JSON. So whenever you are sending the JSON object, you will do content type as application/JSON. Now you would say why we need to specify this, because like I myself told that JSON is a standard way of communication, so you will always set this. Kind of, yes. Most of the times the headers will be application/JSON only, but there are times when your data is not of JSON type. So let's say you are doing some file transfer, let's say image upload, document upload, or some sort of file operation, then you cannot add that file into JSON object. So you use something called as form data. You can also explore that if you want, not much required right now. So the content type will be different in that case. That's what I want to say. So in this case, application/JSON is fine. Let's save it. Hopefully it will work. Send the request again. Clear this actually again. Yeah. Okay, cool. So now this time it gave 400, which is a bad request, which is expected because we do not have this user in our database, which is U1 and P1. So now let's open this and we will simply create this user. So for creation, we actually had, I guess, yeah, this thing. So name, nickname, fine. Username, I just want to change U1 and P1. Send. So now login again, and this time we got a 200 and the response is token. This is expected. If you do login 2, however, you will get again bad request because this user is not there. Errors, you can see no user found. So let's quickly create this user also. So U2 P2, send the request. Now this user is created. Now if you do login 2, this will also give you a token. Cool. So I am just mimicking basically username, password. You will have input fields here instead of 2 different buttons. But yeah, that's good enough. Now let's actually do console.log here. So console.log res. Go to console, login. So if you see res, this response object super big, and body readable stream logged false blah blah blah, and you do not see token here anywhere. I mean, can you see the token? No, right? So the thing is, with fetch, if you want JSON data, actually first rename it raw res. Once you send the request, you get the response. You have to do raw res.json, and again if you hover over it, it actually returns a promise, so you need to do await here. Once you do this much, now if you do login, so now this res contains the actual object which contains the token. So now you see 2-step process. We need to like stringify the body. Small kind of painful things. So for that, developers have created a package called as Axios. So let's just install it quickly. So npm install Axios, AXIOS. It actually has a few more benefits that I will tell you, but for now, let's just install it. Cool. So this Axios is installed. To use it, we will simply do import Axios from Axios and change our const res equal to await axios.post. So this axios.post directly takes the first as parameter URL /API/all, and second is directly body, which can be an object. So you give it credentials kind, and lastly a configuration, which is an object containing headers, and this headers will, like the last time, content dash type, okay, auto suggestions here, and application/JSON. Now you can comment this much, save it, run it again. So you are getting the response. But if you see, there is a minor difference between the structure of the response. So when we are using fetch, we directly get the object. In this case, we get an object which contains the data, which contains your actual object. Okay, because it also contains the status code, the status text, and so on. When you want to retrieve these details using fetch, that's a separate pain in itself. So that's why we kind of use Axios. Minor abstraction. I mean, things are more or less similar with fetch. It's just slightly easier, so we use Axios. In general, I suggest beginners to do not use things which abstract away stuff, so that you learn things on your own. But in this case, I guess using Axios is fine. Cool. So now we use Axios. So this was about the syntax stuff, like how to make the API call. But like I said, the video is more about how you should do things. So let's see what are the problems here, assuming you are working on a big project and not just this toy dummy project. Right now I said that yes, Axios is great, Axios is this, Axios is that, you should avoid using fetch directly. But let's say you are working on a big project with 100 different requests and you update your Axios and suddenly you found that there is a bug in Axios and you have very less time to fix it and you have to resort back to fetch. How you will do this? So are you gonna change all those 100 files and in each file there can be like 10 different API calls? Every time there is Axios you replace it with fetch, and obviously there is a few more things you need to change as well. No, right? Because this assumption itself that Axios will be best forever is wrong. So Axios can change the way Axios like take the parameters. So currently it takes the parameters like this. Maybe tomorrow there is a major version change and Axios start taking parameters in a different way. So you cannot go about changing these things everywhere in your code base. Or maybe something comes up which is even better than Axios and you want to try it out. So you won't do changes in all the API calls. Okay, so this is one issue, which is you want to abstract away how exactly you are making the call. Whether it is fetch, whether it is Axios, whether it is something else. You want to abstract away how you are making the call. This is first thing, how. Second is actually kind of similar. So for logging, you are sending a request to this /API/auth, which is a post request. Now again, right now we only have this one location where logging user is possible, but in a big app, logging might still be only one place, but there can be different things. So let's say get post, if you are building a social media website, then there will be different posts, there will be different user. So get post is something which might be used different places. So you might have get post in user profile, you might have get post on homepage, you might have get post in like 10 different places, and everywhere you are hard coding this that you are doing a post request to this URL. I mean, let's assume that you abstracted away the usage of Axios, so you don't worry about what we are using, fetch or Axios or whatever, but on that black box you are doing a post request with this URL. Now let's say for some reason again the backend had to change the URL or the method or something. You will have to change the URL everywhere in your app, which is again painful. I mean, things might not make a lot of sense in this toy project, but when you are working on a big project, you need to handle these cases because one API call from the backend can literally destroy your whole front-end app. Cool. So abstract away things as much as possible and keep those modular, so that any change from anywhere, whether it's like the underlying library, Axios, fetch, whatever, or your backend, you can easily do that. So first was how you are making the call, which is Axios or fetch or whatever, and second, where you are making the call or what call you are making. Okay, so we need to abstract away these two things at two different levels. So from here in this file, which is authentication, we will just make a function call that we need to log in with this username and password, and everything else should be abstracted. That function should first of all decide what call to make, which will be /API/auth. Then it will again use a second level of abstraction, which is how to make that call. Okay, so to do this, let's create a folder in src, which is API. So for the bottom level of abstraction, which is how we are making the call, let's create another file, api.js, and for now, since we are using Axios, we will import Axios from Axios, and we will do export default API equal to an object. Now this object will have multiple methods on it. So if you do get, then get will take a URL and it will return Axios dot get URL. That's all. Then you will have a post URL body and then return Axios dot post URL body. Actually, instead of body, let's have a payload equal to an empty object, and let's do payload dot body. And why I have done payload? So basically everything other than URL will be encapsulated in your payload. So there are times when you send other stuff as well. So you don't only send body, you can have query parameters, you can have other different stuff. So everything will be abstracted in the payload, and then it's up to you, it's actually up to the code to decide how to use that payload. So since we are using Axios, and since Axios require the call using this, that first is URL, second is body, we do this. And if you remember, we have to pass configuration also. So instead of hard coding it, that it will always have application JSON, let's create a function const get config. It will take the payload, it will check if payload dot body. So if body exists, then return an object with content dash type application slash JSON. If payload dot body does not exist, then return empty object, no config. So now we will do get config payload. Again, why we have done payload instead of body? Because there can be multiple things. There can be query parameters. So you instead of having multiple arguments here, so body, query, params, and so on, whatever, you just have one single payload, and then you decide how to use that. Right now in our app, we are only concerned about body, so I have just added body here. Cool. So get, post, you can have put, delete, patch, all those right here. But do we have the need in this app? What all routes we had? So we had get, post. Yeah, so we only have get and post, so I am just gonna stop here, but I hope you get the idea. Now this much is how we are making the call. So how we are making the call is abstracted. Now we create another file which we will name as todo.js. So basically now I will create separate files for each separate context. Again, what exactly is context is up to you. So in the express tutorial, like we were creating different routers for different contexts. Here also, just to keep things more modular, I will create different files for each context. In this case, in this tutorial, there is only one single context, which is todo. Okay. So now here I want to import Axios. What I will import is import API from /API. Now I don't need to worry about whether we are using Axios, whether we are using fetch or whatever. I just import API and I will do my stuff with this API. It's up to this API to decide how to exactly make the call. So in this todo thing, we will do export default todo API equal to. Now again, this will be an object. This object will also have multiple functions. And in this case, instead of normal function, I am gonna create async functions because I will do await inside it. So async get todos of current user. It does not need to take any parameter, and then an object. By the way, sorry, I did one thing wrong. There is not only one context, there is actually two contexts. I forgot we were doing user login. So let's actually continue with user login. So I will create an auth context. So import API from /API and export default auth API equal to async, so login, and this will take username and password. And then now instead of directly returning API.post, I will do try catch here only. So try catch, and now we will do const res equal to await API.post. Now here we will write /API/auth, and the second thing was payload, which is an object. It will contain body, and the body will contain username and password. Again, I am just writing username comma password, but it means username colon username comma password colon password. Okay, and we will get an error. So if you remember, the actual data is not inside res, it's actually inside res.data. So we will do return res.data. Similarly, if you notice, you can do console.log and notice when we catch the error, the meaningful error is not directly error, it's actually error.response.data. So instead of handling this error right here, we just throw another error, which is the meaningful error, error.response.data. Okay, so if we catch the whole error, we throw the important part of it, and this means that wherever we are using this function login, we need to handle this error. Because here we are not actually handling this error, we are just taking one error and throwing another error. Okay, so save it, and now let's go to our login thing. So const res equal to auth API, auth API, yes. So AUT, I'm just gonna change this to auth API. Yep. Now auth API dot login, username, password. Okay, username, password will be credentials, kind dot username, credentials, kind dot password, and we will need to do await here. Yeah, let's try. API is not defined. Let's reload the page. API is not defined. Okay, it's actually const API this and export default API. And similarly in auth API, let's do const auth API this and export default auth API. Now let's see. So login 1, you get the token. Login 2, you get the token. So things are working as expected. Now you need to store this token on a local storage, and it's up to you if you want to abstract it here only. So here only you do put token in local storage, but I won't do that. So I will keep this for only getting the response, and I will do that in here only. So I will do local storage dot set item, let's say tichnas token, and the value will be res dot token. Cool. So we set the token. Oh wow, last time also I used tichnas as token only. Local storage set item, and then on login success. What this function was doing? Okay, redirecting. Cool. And use effect this. Okay, by the way, we will need to change this a little, because right now if the token is there in the local storage, we just assume that the user is logged in and continue with the login success. Whereas now, since we have a backend, we actually need to validate that token. So check if the token is even valid or not. Not that just I have some token in my local storage, so go ahead with that. Okay, so but for now, let's see. So one thing, if you remember, now we need to send this token in every request we want to send. So whenever we are making any request, we want to send this token. So one way to do this is every time you are making the request, you take the token from the local storage, you attach it and send. But that's again not really a good way. So what you can do is, and that's why we are using Axios. So Axios allows you to put a default header or anything in that. So we will add a default header as token right here. So we will import Axios. Okay, we already have Axios, and as soon as we get the token, let's actually do const token equal to res.token. Now local storage set token and also set it on Axios. So Axios dot defaults dot headers dot common, and the name of our header was x auth token equal to token. So we set the token in local storage so that the next time user visits the website, the user is not forced to log in again. We will check the local storage, and we set the token on Axios so that now whatever request we make will automatically have this token in its header. Okay, so login is this much. Let's remove these things and okay, so we do need to check whether the token is valid or not, but I guess it will be better if we do not check it here. And the reason is, even if we do check it here, remember we had a component called as private route. So if you open that private route, what it does is it takes the token from the local storage, and again if the token is there, it just assumes that the user is authenticated and proceeds with that. Now there are two ways to go about things. Let me explain you. First is check if token is valid in private route. So here you just take the token from local storage, but then also make a server call to check if this is a valid token or not. But as you might have guessed, this would mean that every time we go somewhere, one call will be just to check whether the user is authenticated or not, even though all our backend routes are already protected. So let's say you try to go to to-do list. We first make a server call to check if the user is authenticated or not, and if it's authenticated, then make another call to get the to-do list. Whereas if we can somehow store this information that user is authenticated, then we don't need to do that server call and we directly do the to-do list call. Now you might say that user can again fake it. So even if the user fakes it, that means the user is kind of hacker. So we don't need a really good user interface for that kind of user. So if that kind of user comes and fakes the login, then also when it tries to go to the to-do list, then our server itself is protected and it will then confirm whether the user is logged in or not anyways. It's just that the user won't get a good user experience, but that's okay because that user is anyways not a normal user. Okay, so what we will do is, inside the private route, we will actually take a item tichnas authenticated. I am doing this using local storage, but in either case, if you can learn about some global state management library, like there is a library called as Redux. It's very famous. It's generally used to keep a global state of things. So you have use state hooks to create states which are specific to a component. But this authenticated state is kind of for your whole app, right? Everywhere in your app, you need to know whether you are authenticated or not. So you need to have some way of global state. I mean, you can do it like pass it as props to every component, but that's not a good way. So you use global state management libraries like Redux, or for the sake of demo, and since you don't really have any more states, I mean you just have one single state which is authenticated, so we can use local storage for that. There won't be any issue. And again, if some user tries to play with local storage explicitly, then our frontend won't say anything to the user, but our backend is still secure enough to not give the data which the user is not authenticated to get. So we will not take token, we will check is authenticated. So if authenticated will be this. Okay, so what we need to do is, in the private route we check this. So in your app we will add a use effect with empty dependency array, so that it will run only once when your app runs. So as soon as your app runs, it will clear the local storage. By the way, not clear is not the right word. It will remove the is authenticated flag. So if the token is there, it will still be there. It will just remove the is authenticated local storage. So local storage dot remove item. So we will remove this. So basically what we are doing is kind of mimicking a global state using local storage. So as soon as the app runs, the state is not there. We will set the state later, and in your private route that state is used here. Now let's remove this console.log. Now where should we set the state? So basically the state should be set every time we log in. So in the auth, so we log in here, so we set the state. So what was the state name? So local storage dot set item, this is this, and actually this can be only a string, so irrespective of what you give, it will be true. But let's just give it true as a string. It won't really matter as long as it's not an empty string, because every string which is not empty is actually true only. So we set this, and now here also, actually let's do these things in on login success, because here also we get the token, we have to set the token on to access default, we have to set the authenticated as true. So let's delete these two lines from here and put those here, and it will take a parameter token. So on login success token, and here also on login success token. But here we actually need to do verify token from backend. And why do we need to verify from the backend? Because again, you can argue that if someone has played around with the local storage, then it's okay even if it does not get the good UI. So the thing is, there can be valid users also with the invalid token. And why that can happen is, basically, if you remember, in token we had set an expiry time. So if the token is expired, then the token becomes invalid, right? So the user is still a genuine user, it's just that the token expired, so we need the user to log in again. So we need to handle this case. Okay, but let's do this later. So it's a to-do. We are building a to-do app and I'm adding to-dos. Cool. So we reload the page. We try to go to, let's say, home page. Okay, no home page. What was to-do? Okay, what was the routes? Auth to-do. Okay, it's actually nothing. So logged. Now, okay, why is private route not working? Private route is not working because now it only checks the local storage, this thing. But now when we log out, we do not do anything. So where are we doing log out? Let's search here. So when we do log out, we need to remove this, and we need to remove this as well. So tichnas token and tichnas authenticated. So token will be removed so that the user is not automatically logged in future, and authenticated will be removed so that the current state of the app, remember this is just to mimic the current state, so the current state of the app also knows that we are no longer logged in. So now let's try log out, go to home page. Let's actually check the local storage. So local storage dot get item tichnas authenticated. Okay, this gave null. So wait, private route app.js layout route path this. So console.log is authenticated. Reload. Okay, wait, it didn't even print. That's weird. Let's try again, I guess. What's happening? Check out our React server. It's fine. Route element this route path. Okay, my bad. We do not have it in private route. We have only to do in private route. But to do's page should also be in private route. What a dumb mistake. Yep. this. Or actually what you can do is, if you open the layout, here only you can use private route actually. So I mean, this is assuming that your layout is used only where you want authenticated user to go. So in layout only we will do, wait, what was private route? Yeah, private route does not do much things, so we can use that. Yeah, so private route, import, put it like this, and now we do not need to give private route to anything, because we gave private route to layout, which is the parent of this to do and to do's page as well. So save this. Now if we try to go to home, now it takes us to the authentication page. And now if we log in, now if we reload, if you notice, it just stays there. Okay, so now we have both token as is authenticated is true. Token also you can check, local storage dot get item tichnas that token. So token is also there. Okay, so I guess login integration is this much only. So we have handled the current global state of the app using this tichnas authenticated in local storage, and we have handled the persistent logged in using this tichnas token. Okay, I forgot, we had to do verify token from backend. So for this we actually would need a route. So let's quickly create a route in users. So slash actually change this. So now slash will be for creating the current user. We don't want to get list of all users. So const user equal to await user dot find by id and req dot user dot id. And again, for whenever you want to use this, you need to include this auth middleware, because this user object is not by default on the request object. This is added by this middleware. Okay, remember this. So if user, we do this, else res dot status, again 400 or 401 kind of doubtful, so I will go with 400 dot send errors message no user found, or actually not 401. Okay, I mean this is doubtful, whatever you want to do. So if user is found, we send the user, else we will send this with this error. So now here, not here actually, first we need to create it. So in the auth context only, I am gonna create get user route, get user function. So get user, it won't take any parameters, it will be a get request. So api dot get where slash users. So slash api slash users, and body will have nothing, so we do not need to send any payload at all, because anyway get request we do not allow any payload. Yeah, so get user, await api dot get slash api slash users, nothing else, right? Yeah, I think this should work, and it will send this. Now let's try. So let's actually do a experiment. Let's not set this header. Okay, so basically, okay, actually set the header, but set it with an invalid token. So let's say invalid token. Okay, then also okay, we actually do not need to do this, because in our auth middleware itself, if we check, we are doing this. So we are verifying the JWT token, so it will ensure that the token is not expired and the user is there. Basically this is needed only if in your application user deletion is also allowed. So basically there was a user ID, if we created a token using that, the token is still in time, so everything is perfect, so it will be able to verify that the token is valid because its expiry is not reached and the ID is also valid. It's just that, oh sorry, it's just that the user with that ID itself got deleted from the database. So in that case only it will happen, otherwise it will always send the user. So I mean, if you want you can experiment this, but for now we do not need to experiment this then. So verify a token from the backend. So for that we will actually create a separate function, const check login equal to async try catch error console.error, and instead of doing these things here we will do this here and use effect check login and empty dependency array. This is same as calling check login here. These two things are same, so we will delete this. So in the check login, const token, if not token then we simply return, otherwise we do await auth API dot get user. So this will be successful only if the current user is valid, otherwise it will fail and you will go to error. So we don't really need the result of it, so we just wait for this, and if everything is successful we do on login success. Otherwise if there is some error then we do local storage dot remove item tichnas -- token, because if there is some error that means the token is somehow invalid, so we don't need to store the invalid token in local storage anymore. Cool, save it. Yeah, so now finally the login integration is done. So now let's go to the to-do list. First of all, if you want you can check it out actually. Oh wait, okay, you actually cannot directly call this, you will have to do that only, use effect check login. This issue is because it's a promise, and if you remember we have special things which use effect returns. So use effect returns the cleanup function and so on, so it kind of gets confused if we just apply this. So if your function is asynchronous you have to do it like this only, because this function now does not supply anything, so no cleanup is required. But if you call it like this, then this function actually returns a promise. So this is the difference, you understand, right? Because here we are not doing any cleanup, here the promise is treated as a cleanup thing, so that's the issue. Okay, reload, errors are gone. Currently we are not logged in, so we try to go to home page, it does not allow. We log in, now we cannot go to auth page. Can wait, invalid token /API/users. Okay, is it /API/users or /API/user? So it's /API/users and we give invalid. Weird, what's local storage dot get item tichnas token. Okay, this is null because for a moment let's do one thing, let's not remove this from local storage, let's keep the token as it is so that I at least can debug what's happening. And now on login success we login. Yeah, on login we actually do set the token. Let's try actually. So on auth, we do login, we reload, invalid token, local storage. Local storage dot get item tichnas dash token is valid, but it's saying invalid token because when we do check login, we take the token, we call this, but we do not set this. So we need to set headers also, but later if there is some error, we remove from the local storage and we also remove the headers. By the way, in the logout thing, did we remove the headers? No, we didn't remove the headers, so we need to remove the headers in logout also. Okay, so it will be delete axios.default.headers, yeah, and we need to delete here also. Yep, now I guess it should work. Axios is not defined, where? Here, right? Import axios from axios. So now you log out, you are redirected to the authentication, you log in, you reload. Okay, yeah, now it's working. And now if you try to even go to authentication page, it will redirect you to this page. Now let's first integrate the new to-do so that we have some to-dos to display. So now we will go to this. Let's comment this for now. We will have a function async create to do. It will take only title. If you remember, we created our API that will take only title, and then this will do. Let's actually copy paste. So the try catch things will be similar. Create to do title and await API dot post slash API slash to do's body title. So create to do, and now let's see where we are creating a to do, where we are calling using this component new to do, add new to do. Yep, so for now we are explicitly actually setting the state. We won't do it later when we integrate the get list of to-dos in API also, but for now let's keep it as it is and also call that API to create a to-do. So we'll create this as async function. Since we have created as async, we will do try catch error. So first try to create the to-do. So await to do API. Okay, where is it? Oh, we need to change this also. So const to do API and export default to do API. Now hopefully this will give suggestion. So to do API, yeah. Await to do API dot create to do. It will simply take a title, and again hopefully you have created an input which will be a controlled or uncontrolled input or whatever, but since I don't have it in my code base, I will do to do to-dos dot length +1. This will create a to do. If there is any error, I will simply console.error. You should actually handle it somehow. If nothing else, just do window.alert to at least communicate to the user that some error occurred. Okay. So now let's keep a track on the network tab. Clear this. Do new to do. Okay, 404 cannot post slash API slash to do's. This is our server. We have to do's, to do route, post is there, and in index.js we have slash API slash to do, not to do's. So /API/to-do. Again do new to-do. Yeah, so it created a to-do. It returned this response. So done false, this is your current user ID, this is the unique identifier MongoDB gives it, and title obviously to-do one. If you call it again, let's clear this, call it again. So the title is to-do, done false, user is same as last time if you notice, and ID is the unique identifier. So this API is also integrated. That was fast. Now we will do get to-dos of current user, and again simply copy this, paste it here, and const as API dot get what was the API? It's API slash to do only slash, right? Okay, API slash to do, and we do not need to give any body at all, any payload at all, and yeah, so get to do's of current user. And now what we will do is we need to get the list of users as soon as the component is loaded. So basically let's collapse this. So we will have a use effect with an empty dependency array so that it runs as soon as the component renders first time. We do not need this now. We do not need local storage to mimic our backend. We have a proper backend right now. And in this use effect, we will actually create a function get to do's equal to async, again try catch error console.error error, and const res equal to await to do API dot get to do's of current user. Actually let's print this to do's res res, and in the use effect we will simply do get to do's, not get to do's, actually make it update to do's, because in this function only we will set the state also. Yep, console. So res is basically an array with the to do's ID title. So we can go to our React app, and here only we will do set to do's res, because res is an array of to do's only. Okay, so do we have local storage anymore in this file? No. Okay, so local storage is finally gone. Look and search. Okay, so this is also actually integrated. If you reload, by the way, you notice the warning each child in the list should have a unique key prop. So why is this happening right now is basically now in to-do list what we were doing is keys to do.id, but MongoDB does not have an ID field. MongoDB has an underscore ID, so you will have to do it underscore ID. As soon as you do it, you reload, you won't have that. Okay, and now you are seeing two to-dos. Let's log out. Let's do login 2. No to-dos. Let's log out. Let's do login 1. Two to-dos. Okay, so now these to-dos are associated with your user basically. So I'm not gonna integrate the to-do specific detail page. That will be very similar. One thing which I want to show you is right now if you reload the page, it's actually what we can do is go to the network tab, and here no throttling. Instead of this, select maybe regular 3G and reload. Okay, this is slow. How should I show you? Okay, so basically what I want to show you is, let me mimic this also just for showcase purpose. Add new to-do list. to do wait update to do's. Yeah, to do's page, we have update to do's. Now this is a server call and this will take some time. Now I'm not really able to show you the time difference because this is very small data, but what we can do is to mimic this is in our Express server, in this API, in the to-dos API, when we are doing get, so router.get, instead of directly sending the to-dos, I will do set timeout. This will take a function and that function will be res.send to-dos and I will do 3000. So basically it will send the response after 3 seconds so that I can show you. Now you can do no throttling, reload the page. So if you 1, 2, 3, yeah, now the to-dos come. Now for the end user, it does not know whether there are no to-dos or you are fetching or what is happening basically. So it's a kind of common thing to have a loading state. So in our React app, along with the to-dos thing, we will have const loading set loading equal to use state, and initially it's false. Now whenever you call the update to-dos, you do set loading as true, and irrespective of whether it was successful or it was error, whatever, you know that your loading is false. So loading set true and loading set false, and depending on if it's loading or not, you can print it. So loading and p loading, or you can have a beautiful loader as well, but this is just for showcase. So if you now reload, it will show loading for the first 3 seconds, and after that if there are to-dos then display to-dos, if there are no to-dos then don't. So if you log out and to log into, 3 seconds loading and then no to-dos. Yeah, so log out, login 1. Now every time you refresh the page, it's loading, right? Not actually refresh, if you change the route somehow. So if you do log out to login 1, it's loading. If you do log out, do login 1, it's loading again. So basically every time you are fetching the data, you are making a server call, and it's not very efficient always. So you have already requested for to-dos, you got that. Now next time if you request for to-dos, then there should be some caching mechanism. So basically your code should check that, okay, I requested for to-dos just now, so why should I make another server call? And even if I am making the server call, at least for now, let's show these to-dos, whatever I have. Okay, so for that we actually again have a very beautiful library, and that is SWR. So npm install SWR. Let's just install this library. I will show you how to use it. Cool, now it's installed. So this library actually gives a hook. So import use SWR from SWR. Now SWR gives a use SWR hook, and how to use it is basically, by the way, if you remember, I explicitly mentioned in the React tutorial video as well, hooks are not called conditionally. Hooks will always be there. Okay, so here you will do const equal to use SWR, and it's asking for a key. So basically use SWR will take this key to map data to it. So basically in this case you can give something like to-do list. So since this is to-do list, it whatever data it will get, it will associate it with to-do list. So in your app, whenever you refer to this to-dos list thing, this use SWR hook will check, do I have some data corresponding to this key? If I have some data, then return it directly. Without waiting for the server response, we return it directly. If it does not have, then it will try to get that data from server. By the way, I am saying server again, but this use SWR hook is not specific to server calling, but for any promise, because promises take time. So you give the promise here, which is a function call, and that is to-do API dot get to-dos of current user. So either you can give it like this, or you can do it simply like to-do API dot get to-do. Yeah. So basically give function like this. Basically this is a function which is calling this function, or directly give the function name. Both are same things. Cool. So use SWR takes a key and a promise, and whatever is the result of that promise, it will associate that data with this key. So the next time you request data with the same key, it won't wait for the promise to give you data, it will give data directly. Cool. And what does it return? It simply returns data and error, because you don't really have a try catch statement here. That's why it gives you an error in case you want to handle. Now when you have data, now in use effect, you do not need to actually call this update to do's function, because this use SWR hook will simply run. It won't wait for anything. Okay, so we do not need this actually. Just console.log data and data, and maybe also error and error, and open console, reload the page once. So if you notice, initially data undefined, error undefined, data undefined, error undefined, then data came something, and error is still undefined because there is no error. So since we are not doing this update to do thing, we can't really use this set loading state, because we can't set the state. So what we can do is, basically what is loading now, const loading equal to not data and not error. If data is not there as well as error is not there, then that means it is loading, because once the loading is finished, either we have data or we have some error. If we do not have anything, which means both of them are undefined, then it's loading. So we do not need this state as well right now. So just changing the name, because we are still using the variables in this function, so I can't really comment it, but you get the idea, right? So now reload the page, loading for 3 seconds. Now when you log out, when you log in again, okay, we are not actually setting the state, but the data is printed as array, which is 2 elements. Yeah, so data is printed as an array with 2 elements, which is your to-dos. So basically we will put a use effect on which variable? On data variable. We will check if data is there, then we will do set to-dos and data. So this is one way. Let me show you. So reload the page, loading for 3 seconds, 1 2 3. Now you log out, you log in again, it's instant, right? You log out, you log in again, it's instant. You do not need to wait. But when you reload the app, it's basically you are opening the website from scratch, so that's why the cache is lost. But while navigating the whole app, the cache is there. So whenever you come to the same page again, your data will be there. Okay. So now, obviously one way is to set to-dos variable. Otherwise, if you know the data itself contains the to-dos, so we don't really need the to-dos variable. Instead, we can just define to-dos here. So const to-dos equal to data or an empty array. Why an empty array? Because if the data is undefined, then we are still doing dot length, so these things will cause issues. If you do not have any such thing, then you can directly use data as well. So now when we have defined to-dos here, we again do not need this state. So changing the name, reload the page, loading for 3 seconds, then the data will come. Yeah, but now there is an issue. How do we update to-dos? Because initially in the add new to-do, we could call this function update to-dos to update the to-dos, because now we don't really use this state, right? So if you try adding new to-do, by the way, network call, so new to-do, the network call is sent, but the to-do is not there. So if you call new to-do again the network call is sent, but the to-do is not here. Okay, so what we can do is, along with data and error, it actually gives another thing, which is mutate. Mutate is used to update the data forcefully. So now when you are doing add new to do, we do not need this state anymore. You will do create to do, and then you will do await mutate and save. by the way. Now we have the to-dos here because it refreshed, but let's reload the page. Yeah, so to do 1, to do 2, 3, 4, add new to do. Yeah, so it basically did first call to add a to do to the server and then another call to forcefully update the data. Okay, so await mutate. And by the way, the sequence is important here. You first need to do this and then only you need to do this. You cannot first do mutate and then this, or you can also not start both the promises at the same time. So by the way, I'm not sure if you know about it, but if you have, let's say, 10 different server calls which are independent of each other. So let's say you want to create 10 different to-dos which are independent of each other. So what you can do is await promise dot all and in an array give function 1, basically promise 1, promise 2. So how this will help is it will start both of them simultaneously and not wait for one to start the another. In this case we are waiting for this to finish and only then we will start this. In this case we start both of them and this whole statement will finish when all of them finish. Everything we given in this array. This is again asynchronous JavaScript. If you want me to make a detailed video on asynchronous JavaScript, then let me know in the comments. I will discuss all these complex things in that video if required. But in this thing, I just want to convey that mutate should be always done after you create it, because mutate is dependent on creation. If creation is not done and you do mutate first, then you will still get the old data. Cool. So actually integration is only that much. We do not have much to teach. I just wanted you to learn about Axios and SWR. SWR is very important. It helps in caching. And if you have a complex web app where you are navigating between pages constantly, caching is improves user experience a lot. One thing which you can explore, it's again part of SWR. Instead of doing this mutate and waiting for everything basically to update a UI, we have something called as optimistic UI. So even the famous companies like YouTube and so on using optimistic UI. So I will just tell the concept of what is optimistic UI, and then it's up to you. If you want to learn more about it, you can Google and figure out. So what happens is, right now what we are doing is, let's say again you are building, let's say, a social media website and you like something. By the way, I am saying you build a social media, but this exact same thing happens on YouTube also. You can try it out. So what we'll do is first make a server call to actually update the like. So this is one server call. Second, make another server SER server call to get the updated data. This is exactly what we are doing here. So we create the to do first server call and we get the latest data second server call. This is normal, but this does not give a good user experience. So on YouTube, when you press the like button turns white instantly and the number of likes increases instantly. It does not wait for server. So what it does is, first it updates the UI. So irrespective of whether your server is running or not, whatever, it will simply update the UI assuming that the response was successful. Okay. Now after doing this, it will actually do server things. Now your server will either give successful response or give some error. In case there is some successful response, then whatever you updated in the UI will stay as it is because that was correct. In case there is some error, then UI will actually change again. So let's say your video has 0 likes. You press the like button, it will show you 1 like, but if there is some error from the server side, then that one will again turn to 0. Okay, so it's like in the 95% of the cases, user will have a good experience. In the 5% of the cases where your server actually gives some error, then the user experience will be a little bad, I guess, because initially it will show that okay, it was successful, but then again the UI will change randomly. So this is called as optimistic UI. Optimistic UI. A lot of big companies use it. It will be great if you at least read about it and try it a little bit and see if it really improves the user experience or not. And yeah, that's all for the integration video as well. We didn't really learn new technologies in this video, but we connected the already 2 apps we created in the previous tutorials. Hope you liked the video. So if you like the video, press the like button, also share it with your friends. I will probably create more videos in the future, so press the subscribe button to stay updated, and I will add the links in the description for my other social media handles as well, so don't forget to follow me there as well. If you want me to make video on any topic related to MERN, related to React, Express, any project, any weird stuff, maybe competitive programming, random projects, other technologies like Django, basically anything tech related, just let me know in the comment section and I will try my best to make a video on that. And thank you for watching this video. See you next time. Bye bye.